hello. Happy Friday, everybody. And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts. Our other host, Tony Ihrig, is gigging somewhere in Iowa today. So I'm flying solo today with our special guest, Drew Nelson, joining us from Michigan.
Hello, hello.
Folks are excited to have.
Disappointed. I wish you'd had like Frampton Comes Alive or something.
Oh man, next time I'll have to have that patch. I was just pleased that with Tony gone, he usually has all the cool sound effects. So
All right.
I was just pleased I got the applause going.
It
So
was perfect.
yeah, well, thank you. And it looks like Alan is joining us from Texas. Ooh, martini time. Wow. Uh, uh, Cheers to that, Alan. And Chris joining us from Minnesota. Udapil's Brewing Oktoberfest Receptional Fest beer. Oh, right. So, yeah, it's 'tis the season, I guess. And because it feels like fall right now, I mean, it's still warm, but it's gray and rainy today here in Minnesota. So I'm enjoying a bent paddle from Duluth. I didn't have any Michigan beer in your honor, Drew. So
I am drinking a liquid IV energy drink
excellent. I know you are.
out of a mason glass. So
I
at least,
love.
my
I love.
former alcohol career is still has a whisper there, but
Yeah, that's right. And I know you're healing up you from some injuries, so we want to make sure that
yeah.
yeah, you stay hydrated and stay well. So
Yeah, I got
we're
ran
just
over by a Chevy Tahoe on my motorcycle
ugh,
on the
no
4th of
good.
July. So
Yeah, well, I'm so happy to see that you are out and playing again. You played Wheatland Festival in Michigan last week, right?
yeah, my 20-year plan of being the worst musician in my band has finally paid off. We had Donnie Brown, the original drummer from the Verve Pipe, playing with us, and
Oh, wow.
Mike Robinson, an amazing guitar player, and Mark Schrock on bass, Andrew Schrock on bass. Mark. It was just at one point I leaned over to Mark and said, "We don't actually have to do anything anymore. All I have to do is now is remember the words." It's great.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm glad you're getting out to perform again and joining us today. Lynn joining us from Greenville, South Carolina, joining at Pinot Grigio.
Is that a city in South
I,
Pinot Grigio?
Greenville.
Oh,
Oh no,
Greenville. Oh,
Greenville. Yeah, I
oh,
think
that
she's
went fast.
drinking a
Okay,
Pinot
all right,
Grigio.
gotcha.
Um, and let's see, we got Joe in South Minneapolis, and Joni having a Diet Pepsi right here in the Twin Cities. All right, and then my mom joining us from Litchfield, Connecticut.
Oh,
So. So great to have you all here today.
I
I'm
remember one of the very first good conversations that we really got into was about your canoeing trips with your dad,
mhm.
way up in the back country up there.
Yeah, in the
Hmm.
Adirondack Mountains. In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
just a couple weeks ago, I was up there with my family and in northern New York near the Canadian border. And actually, we did one of our shows. I did it remotely from there with Ray Bonneville, one of your
Oh,
old Red
nice.
House
Yeah.
cohorts. Yeah. So, yeah, Ray Bonneville used to be on the Red House Records label, as were you. And so, we're going to talk a little bit about that because the album we are going to revisit today on the Back Catalog Listening Party is one of those Red House releases you did. I think you did two, if I'm not mistaken.
Just one.
Oh, I thought you did. Oh, it was just Tilt-A-Whirl. That
No,
was the
just
only one?
Tilt-A-Whirl. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, this is one of my favorites, so I'm really excited we're going to get to talk about it today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. If you're new to the show, this is the show where we invite different artists on to talk about their old records and share stories about the songs and what they remember about making the recording. But the show's only as good as your participation. So if you're out there listening, and lots of folks are, definitely throw your comments or questions in the comments, and we'll try and to respond to as many questions as we had. And it looks like Alan's sending his condolences about the accident your way as well. And
Oh.
yeah.
Well, Alan, the bad news is it was a 1972 Triumph Tiger that I spent 2 years restoring. The good news is that the frame is straight, and I just got all the parts back from paint, so we're putting her back together.
Oh, good. Putting the bike back together and putting you back together.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's the important thing. And it looks like Jeff wants to know. He's joining us from the
Hey,
UK.
Jeff. Yeah,
So he
Jeff
says, when are
Manning.
you coming back to the UK? Apparently.
Jeff lives in Marylebone in London, and whenever I'm over there, I stay with Jeff and Monica at they're flat. So hey, Jeff, what's going on?
Oh, it's so
Nice.
nice. And we're glad to see you're starting to perform out again. You've been doing some other things of late, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. But I want to dig into the music.
Okay, sorry.
For folks who maybe aren't as familiar as maybe Jeff might be with your music, or me, maybe you could give sort of a brief bio, like 2-minute version of like where you grew up, how you started playing music, and maybe put this album in context a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up in a tiny little farm town, not even in the town, outside of the town in northern Michigan. Um, I got lower northern Michigan, and was surrounded by a lot of apple orchards and fruit trees and all that good stuff. And we had a big old farmhouse with a big front porch, and on Thursday nights and Friday nights in the summer, people would come with big bass guitars and banjos and mandolins, and they'd sing all the gospel songs and old Irish songs and ballads, and we were just running around, but I just was always mesmerized by the music, and that's kind of where it all started for me. It just never left, and then in school, literature and anything with a story just captivated me. I was terrible with math and numbers and all that, but if there was a story attached to it, somehow my little ADHD brain could grasp onto it, and so musically, that I've always been attracted to the words and the lyrics and the stories. So I feel like I'm probably influenced more by poets and authors than by other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's kind of where
Excellent.
I started.
And then this album that we're going to talk about was your first and only on Red House Records, but it was not your first album. So
No.
where was this in the catalog? Like, how many had you put out before this one came out?
3.
3.
So
Okay.
this was number 4. Yep. And there was a seismic shift, I think, in the album before this is called Dusty Road to Beulah Land, and it was where I started really writing more from a character standpoint than just out of my own, first person narrative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that this album was a really, the Tilt-A-Whirl record was kind of the next stage in that. So this whole thing is characters and not necessarily me. Mm-hmm. But looking through the geography through the lens of these other folks.
Wonderful. Well,
or trying to.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dig into these songs because, as you said, they all kind of tell their own story. So the first song that you picked to feature from this record, Tilt-A-Whirl, is Promised Land. Is there anything you want to say about this before we take a listen to it?
Yeah, I'm a veteran. I was in Desert Storm, and I still do quite a bit of work with veterans. And this is about a group of folks that I read about who had come home from the war, and they just couldn't really, get back to the mainstream, and they were doing day laborer stuff. And so this is that little story.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to take a listen to this. This is Drew Nelson with Promised Land from his album called Tilt-A-Whirl.
Up in the morning before the sun, listen to the train whistle whining. Where is it going? Where has it been? Why does it pass me by? Fill up the thermos, go meet Jose. Cold one a day on a corner. I'll do cement work, whatever they say, as long as the jobs come my way. As long as the jobs come my way. Whoa, 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 that's how it is. Just getting by is the plan. Welcome to the world of the working poor, here in the promised land. Jobs just don't come. Then there's the days the cops chase you away. Just put your head down and run. Just put your head down and run. Whoa, 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 that's how it is. Just getting by is the plan. Welcome to the world of the working poor. Here in the promised land. When I was 18, I was a Marine. Tough guy who never looked back. I left something behind on the Iraqi line. It's something I'll never get back. Something I'll never get back. Oh, 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 that's how it is. Just getting by is the plan. Welcome to the world of the working poor. Whoa, 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 that's how it is. Just getting by is the plan. Welcome to the world of the working poor. Here in the promised land. Promised land.
Oh, I'm so glad I waited for that last drum hit. And Promised Land, that was Drew Nelson, who's joining us today on the Back Catalog Listening Party from his 2012 Red House Records release, Tilt-A-Whirl. And I believe,
That's a
if
long
I'm not
time ago.
mistaken, it was a long time ago now, 10 years, hard to believe. And that song, if my memory serves right, and it might not be right, I think that's the first track on the record.
It is. Yep.
And I love that it starts, kicking into gear with that sort of mechanical noise. Is that meant to be like a tilt-a-whirl kind of
Yeah,
sound?
I'm a big fan of leaving everything in the albums. Like there, you'll hear chairs squeak, and there's just little things little comments at the end of stuff. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think the stuff that I remembered, because it's been so long, and the first thing I that really stood out to me is that B3 at the beginning,
Hmm.
that organ, and it was I really went all out and got a real B3 and rented one and had it dropped in the studio with dual Leslies, and because I really wanted. I mean, you can get good keyboard sounds, but they're not like a real B3, you
Right.
know. So we had the real B3 the night before we were supposed to record. We were all recording live. The whole album's pretty much live with the band in different spots. And then I overdubbed some vocals, but um, Mike Lynch, who was supposed to play B3 on the record, I saw on his Facebook this big view of an arena with his rig, and it said, "Finally, I got the Kid Rock tour." So I'm like, "Oh, he's not coming." So he was playing with Uncle Cracker. So that we got Michael, the producer, said, "Well, I think I can do it," and he did a really wonderful job. And then the other thing that stands out to me about that track is that really great, tasty electric guitar.
Mm.
And that's Brett Lucas, who plays with Betty Levette.
Oh,
Came
wow.
in from Detroit, and he played. That's actually Les Paul. He was joking. Yeah, they don't think that's Michael, the guy in the hat who was played B3 and Mark Schrock, and yeah. So those are the things that kind of stand out about that.
Yeah. And I
Remembering.
think we have the B3. Let's see. I think we might have this in one of the photos that you sent.
There it is. Yeah. Yep.
There we go. So that's Michael playing that.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And tell us about I think you were mentioning that there's something about this amp
That
behind you.
old Ampeg amp in the background there. That's like a '68 Ampeg amp, and it's an old accordion amp. And
Hmm.
a lot of the guys really scour. Like Fender did his Pawn Shop series for a while. They're all kind of based off those New Jersey amps, but it had the best tremolo, like of anything that you could. Yeah,
Mm.
that's all over the album.
Excellent. And then we see a little cat
That's
making an
Paris
appearance.
Paris Smith, the studio cat. She was our executive producer on the record. She oversaw
Next.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, literally looking down from above as cats
Yeah.
do. And there
And then
you
I
are.
I do vocals really weird when so I actually do the vocals not in a booth. Usually I do them in the control room and I'm actually listening to the monitors. As I don't have headphones on or anything like that. So you get a little bleed through, but read an article that's how Sting does his vocals, and so I mean, if it works for Sting, then I thought I would do it.
Yeah,
And I really like it that way.
excellent. Well, I again, I think it sounds great, and again, the story in that song is obviously the most important part, and the music just lifts that up. But you were mentioning that you this record and the one before it, you really started to focus on sort of your storytelling and doing more narrative stuff about other characters. And you mentioned obviously that you're a vet, and that this was from observing some vets that you had seen come back from the war or not come back, as it were. Um, was this based on any particular person, or was this sort of a composite?
Kind of a composite about a article that I had read about some guys that were doing day laboring stuff, and then I was out in Maryland at this thing called Common Ground on the Hill, and they have a veterans initiative, and I met a bunch of guys that served together in Iraq. I was in the Navy on an aircraft carrier, but these guys were in country.
Hmm.
Um, and there were a couple of them, like they just don't want anything to do with the VA or anything to do with the government in any way. And one of the guys was kind of living out in the desert in Arizona, and him and I talked a lot. So he's in there quite a bit.
Hmm.
So
And I'd be curious, given that writing is such kind of a big part of your music, the songwriting, the narrative, and that reading is obviously a big part of what feeds into that, as you mentioned, poetry and other books. Do you have a daily writing practice, or do you just write when you feel moved? I know you wear a lot of hats these days, so I know that you're not just
e-
doing music, but.
even when I was doing music full time, I didn't have a daily writing practice.
Mhm.
Um, I just am not disciplined. I mean, I've got ADHD and I'm all over the place, so it's hard to. I mean, I'm also I teach meditation, and that's still I struggle with a daily practice doing that too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but but that being said, is I do write a lot.
Hmm.
It might not be every day, but I always feel like you exercise that muscle. It's like I use the baseball analogy that like if you're in the clutch in the World Series and it's time for you to step up and there's 3 outs or 2 outs and this is your time, unless you've swung that bat a million times, you're not ready for that moment, right? And I feel like
Right.
writing's the same way. Like unless you've really worked at your craft, you're not ready for when the muse is and that special thing, that special idea or whatever that magic is that happens. You got to have all that background work done before you're ready to step up
Gotta have the
into it.
nets ready to
You
catch
got to
it.
do your
Yeah.
10,000 hours.
Yeah. I love that. That's
Hmm.
that's it's really wonderful. Well, if you just joined us, Drew Nelson is joining us here on the Back Catalog Listening Party to revisit his 2012 release Tilt-A-Whirl. And we were talking about some of the personnel that was on the record, and that, kind of an all-star cast, folks who played with Betty LaVette. And it looks like my parents said that they saw Betty LaVette a few months ago.
Woo!
So yeah, that
Nice.
doesn't sound like a bad thing at all.
No, wow.
Um, and you were just talking about sort of writing regularly, and I was wondering if the songs on this record were ones that you like. Were you intentionally writing for this record, or was this just the collection of songs you had at the time?
I had more songs than this, but what's really funny is I write a lot in the studio.
Hmm.
There are 2 songs on the album that I wrote the night before and brought them into the band and said, "We're doing this today." So I would, and, and they turned out to be a couple of my favorite songs. "Dust" is one of those songs, and "My Girl" is the other song that was
Awesome. Well, we
that we
actually
put in
have
there.
Dust as one of the songs that you picked out to feature on today's show. So maybe we could talk about this song. Is there anything you want to say about this particular song other than that you wrote it in the studio?
Well, let's just listen to it and
Okay.
and talk about it after.
Sounds good. Um, let's see. Let me do one thing to get us ready here for this. And okay. I think I got it. Here we go.
Well, I built this house with my own two hands on the northwest corner of some family land. I know every brick and every nail. I worked them all till I hurt like hell. And the man from the bank came by today, said we got a week from Saturday. 24 years to count for much, just rolls around like all this does. All this does. Well, we had a little boy and a baby girl. And Mindy went to Cali with a guy who ran the tilt-a-whirl. And I worked my land till my fingers would bleed. No time for crying when there's mouths to feed. And the man from the bank came by today, said we got a week from Saturday. 24 years, don't count for much, just rolls around like all this dust. All this dust. It's a hard way to go, praying for rain, cursing the wind, and how everything can change in the blink of an eye, with a stroke of a pen, stroke of a pen. Some matches and a can of gas, and I lit up a smoke and took one good drag. Forgive me, Father, I know just what to do. Just let go and leave the rest to you. Hey.
All right. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss any of that B3 or anything like that
It
happening.
sounds great.
Sounds so good. I think
haven't
you saw
listened to
my
this in a
face
long
when it
time.
came in. I was like, yeah. Sounded great.
Yeah, and that
And
pedal steel that's all distorted. It sounds like it's Drew Howard, but it's kind of got that Lloyd Main-esque kind of Richard Buckner early record feel to it.
yeah. And and that was that a dobro on there too, or
I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
Probably.
So great. So yeah, let's talk again about the different people who are playing on that track, just so we make sure we get all those names in there.
Is there a poetry book? Oh, sorry. What do we do? Sorry, I
Oh
got
yeah, no, it's okay.
ADD. I got
No,
yeah.
no, we can answer this question first.
Oh, okay.
Lynn was wondering what poetry is on your nightstand.
Oh well, on my nightstand right now. Let's see. It's not poetry. Is Blazing Splendor. This is the life of Tsuku Urgyen Rinpoche, who's a Tibetan
Mm,
Buddhist guy. But see, I've been reading a lot. Well, I think Mary Oliver's like my staple. I showed you earlier.
mhm.
I've got a picture of like Mingyur Rinpoche, my teacher, and then Martin Luther King and the Dalai Lama, and like all these people, and Mary Oliver's like at the top
Nice,
of the
nice.
yeah,
One of your go-tos.
yeah. She's it.
Yeah, and we got another writing question from Chris,
Yeah.
wondering what inspires you to write a song. Great storytelling. Yeah, is it a story itself that inspires
Well,
you,
yeah,
or?
that one is kind of based on a newspaper article that I read about a farmer who, instead of letting the bank foreclose on his house, he took a bulldozer and bulldozed it down. Um, it's really hard to rhyme bulldoze, so in the in the song he burns it down, you know. But
Creative license. That's
right,
important. Well,
right.
that's something that, poets don't really always have to worry about, but songwriters do sometimes is some of those tricky rhymes.
All's fair in love and rhymes. That's what they
Exactly.
say.
Exactly. Well, yeah, other than bulldoze, I mean, I guess you could use shovel, but that doesn't have the same, catastrophic impact that bulldoze implies. So,
Right. So Alan just called me out because I am sitting on my bed, and it's because of the accident in my back. I
right.
broke some stuff in my back and my leg and three ribs and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is the most
Yes.
comfortable place.
And you know what? I have to say, your bed looks much more tidy and respectable than mine. So,
Well, you're only seeing this little slice.
well, that's the beauty of these
But I
things,
have this
right?
great. Hey, so the Texas guy, I
Hmm.
have this
Alan.
wonderful signed print from Bill Whirl up there, a wonderful Texas
Oh.
artist who lived in Newark, Texas, and on the Lanao River there.
Hmm.
And was everybody, you'd go to Bill's house and you'd never know who you'd run into. It could be the guys from Brooks and Dunn or I was with Hal Ketchum one night where he
Nice.
called in sick to the Grand Ole Opry because he was on a jag. Um, what day is it? It's Thursday. He goes, oh no, I better make a call. He called into the Opry. I'm not gonna make it.
I bet they had
Yeah.
backup people for just when he was booked, probably, just in
Ray
case.
Wiley.
You never know.
You never knew who was at Bill's
Yeah.
house. Yeah. Mhm.
Alan likes that. That's great. And then
Oh, he
Lynn.
lives near there. Oh, so man, I wish Alan. Next time I'm in Texas, you and I we're gonna go get Miga's tacos together. So I gotta have.
Ah, yes.
I'm dying.
Um, I'll let you, Alan. You're gonna have to go hit up Drew for that. And actually, this is a good time to share your Facebook page. I just put it in the comments. So if
Oh,
folks want to follow you there, they can keep tabs on you and probably send you a message. Um, uh,
oh, green,
yeah.
nice.
And so, Lynn has a question. Let's see
Okay,
if oops, no, here we go. She was asking who the female vocalist was on that track.
Jen Siggett.
Ah, from
Jen S
Michigan. Yeah.
Y G I T
Hmm.
rhymes with Diggit. I highly recommend you look her up right now and buy every album that she has.
She's a
She is
great songwriter. Yeah.
amazing. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Another Michigan person, and also done a lot of just wonderful community music organizing too, as
Hmm.
well. And and speaking of the personnel, that's what I was going to ask. But after all the great B3 and all that other great stuff we heard on that record, I just want to make sure we have all the personnel highlighted who played on the song and on the record.
I think Drew
Um,
Howard
mhm.
played, and then Michael Crittenden played the B3. I played acoustic guitar. Brian Morrill on drums. I don't know who else. Jen Siggett sang. I'm not sure.
Mhm. Cool. And I will say that I'm gonna take up the link to share with everyone, but that this album has again a ton of great players. You're going to want to dig into the liner notes, and also it's a really nice package as well. So if folks want to dig into that and buy a physical copy, I'll share that in a little bit here in the comments. And it looks like, by the way, Alan did offer you a place to stay. So
Oh,
if you're when
fantastic!
you're in
I'm in.
Texas.
Right on.
And then we have a question from Joni. Were you writing prior to your time in the military, and how did that change your writing once you came home?
Yeah, I've written as long as I can remember. I've written stuff. Yeah, well, the military changed everything.
Hmm.
It was good, and it's. I'm not as like oorah as some people, but I don't. I mean, gosh, they taught me how to, like be an adult. Partly. And I got to go all over the world. Unfortunately, it was during a conflict. I met people that I would have never known in my little town. I mean, I was on an aircraft carrier. There were 5,000 people on the boat, and there were only like 75 people in my graduating class. So it was like a huge thing. Small town kid just gets thrown into the big bad world. And yeah, it's changed everything, and now it's still informing my life. And I was just at a retreat put on by the West Michigan Alliance for Veterans, and we were doing a lot of PTSD work, and a lot of guys dealing with moral injury. I don't know if you've ever heard of moral injury. Moral injury is when you're asked to do things that are against your character, and sometimes you're put in situations like that, and a lot of times these things don't come out in people for a long time. Um, and we had vets from Vietnam and Korea, one from Korea, and then Desert Storm, my era, and then there was one kid I was telling you about, a Marine who went. Uh, I went in the service the year he was born.
Hmm.
So now, like, he was calling me pops all weekend. So now, like, I've become that guy, which is exciting. So yeah, it's still informing how I write and how I'm trying to live and become a more compassionate person and a more loving person, and trying to share this with some guys who have gone through, and women who have gone through some really really hard things,
Hmm.
really
Yeah,
hard things.
and before we came on today, you were even mentioning that you still have some tinnitus in your ear. So
Oh
that was
yeah,
another
yeah,
sort. And as a musician, that's something that,
yeah, it doesn't stop.
yeah,
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 I've got
um,
those good the good hearing aids that the VA gave me, which are nice. So
mm, yeah. Well, if you just joined us for the back catalog listening party, we're talking with Drew Nelson from Michigan, wonderful songwriter, and we are revisiting his 2012 Red House release, Tilt-A-Whirl. And I should mention that in addition to your music, again, you've worn a lot of hats, done a lot of things. We were just talking about your career in the military, but also these days you're doing. I know you build instruments, banjos,
yeah,
guitars, and I don't know what other instruments you're building these days, or if you are, but also doing other woodwork as well.
just
So
built.
tell
I
us a little bit about that.
I kind of translated from well, I had little kids, right? So once you have little kids, it's hard to stay on the road,
Hmm.
and it's not like I was on the road making hundreds of thousands of dollars. That would have been a lot easier. But you can't show a loss every year and stay on the road and have a partner or a spouse expect that that's okay.
Hmm.
um, and I wanted to be a dad, so I started building instruments, and then one day it dawned on me, like, everybody needs a table.
Hmm.
Like the instrument market's kind of small, but like everybody needs furniture. So I started really studying fine furniture building, and I had a small business, and we made beautiful furniture for a lot of really neat places. And then like a lot of things, COVID was really hard on that business.
Hmm.
And then I got a job with the Special Olympics Michigan, which I just adore. I adore. We're building. We bought an old high school, and we're building the largest Special Olympics facility in the entire world,
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
part of it. And it's amazing. Like we were talking earlier, I get like 14 fist bumps and 3 hugs a day. It's
Oh,
not a bad job.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, that's so great, and it's wonderful to see that you are going where your heart is leading you, wherever that might be. And I'm also excited to see that you are performing music out again
Yeah,
now
that's
that
been
now that
really
it's
fun.
yeah, now that it's safe to do
Yeah.
so. And and I know you have some shows coming up here in Wisconsin and some other places. So we'll share those as well. It looks
So
like
on a writing note, which I don't know if Joanne might be interested in this, but one thing this album did for me is that I had started a few years before a writing correspondence with the Wisconsin author Michael Perry, who wrote Truck, A Love
yeah.
Story, and Population 45, and I'm a huge fan of his.
Mhm.
And I was actually doing a show. I think you might have been there. It was at is it Ginkgo's Coffee House? What's the
Yes,
Ginkgo's?
I was at this show.
And
Yeah.
Michael came. Right, Michael came to the thing, right to the show. And unfortunately, I was so enthralled with talking with Michael, I kind of ignored a really nice house concert guy by accident. And you get on to me about that a little bit. But 10 years later, Michael and I have this wonderful friendship. We talk on the phone all the time, and we so that's one of the nice things that this album and Red House and you all were part of.
Well, it's really the songs that drive all of that, and the music that brings everyone together, both physically into a space, which we're getting to enjoy now and again after a couple years of not having that, which I think is so special, as well as here online virtually, which also is something that came out of these last couple years, is a desire to reconnect with our friends who we haven't seen in a while. And certainly, I can't remember the last time I've seen you in person, Drew. It's
been a long time.
I mean, maybe it's not 2012, but I feel like it's not long after 2012.
When did we go to Memphis for that convention?
That was 2012.
That was 2012?
Yeah, when this album had just come out.
Right.
There might have been a Folk Alliance afterwards that we maybe saw each other, but it's been a while. So
it has been. Or if I was driving through and happened to stop at the office or something, we would see each other. But
yeah, if anyone wants to see a hilarious photo of us wearing each other's merch, that's on the Mother Banjo Facebook page. I can find that there.
That was the wild night with Dale Watson, I think. That was.
Yeah. Well, any night with Dale Watson is going to be wild, pretty much. We need to get him on the back catalog listening party. I'll work on that for next time. We've had plenty of your other former Red House colleagues on the show, which has been a lot of fun. But let's try and get some more music here. And I think Jeff was asking about this song, Lessons.
Yeah.
And
I wrote this
one of his favorites.
Wonderful writer, Dave Boutet from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I had the chorus and some things, and I came over with a pad of paper and a thermos of coffee, and I said, "I'm not leaving until we get a song." And that's what came out.
I love it. Okay, we're going to hear this now. This is Lessons by Drew Nelson here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Half mile down the road, quarter mile east, corner of First and Pine where the drugstore used to be. Bottom of the hill, there's a sharp left turn. If you grew up around here, well, that's something that you learn. You learn. Tough as hell, calloused hands, that's just how it was. The measure of a man, there's church on Sunday. Don't let your bridges burn. If you grew up around here, that's something that you learn. You learn. Hail Mary now, there's nothing here to see. Just an old foundation where Boomtown used to be. School bell don't ring, crows don't care. Just lessons left around, let the gravestones lying there, lying there. Well, they built this place up from the ground. Lightning struck, hope fell down. When they left, thought they would return. It's the best laid plans, oh, lessons that you learn. Hail Mary, now there's nothing here to see, just an old foundation where a boom town used to be. School bell don't ring, crows don't care, it's just lessons left around, like the gravestones lying there. I am constantly reminded of everything that's gone. You can bleed, hope, plead, pray, but everything moves on. 'Cause the bricks gotta fall, the wood's gotta burn, and you just gotta build your own. Well, that's something that you learn. You learn. Back of the house, at the edge of the woods, standing where my mother's mother stood. From the ashes of her little dreams, up come the ferns. You just gotta build your home. That's something that you learn. You learn.
I never want to cut it off too early. I get those last little mandolin notes in there. And yeah, that was Lessons from Drew Nelson's 2012 release, Tilt-A-Whirl, which we are revisiting today with Drew, joining us from Michigan. And my co-host, Anthony Ihrig,
Hey,
he's
Tony.
in Spencer, Iowa right now playing with Becky Schlegel. And but he says it's sounding great and he's really liking the pedal steel. And
Nice.
I agree with that. That was sounding real sweet.
It's Captain Midnight, Mr. Drew Howard himself playing that.
So good. And yeah, folks really loving that.
Here's a funny thing. Drew has been in my band. He recently just has transitioned to do something differently, but he was in that band for about 15 years, and he still doesn't know the name of the songs.
He just, but
he's
so
he's a savant though. I don't think he's ever played the same solo twice. Like he's just
right.
Yeah, that
he just
guy.
kind of like as soon as he starts hearing the song, he's like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's
oh
that
yeah,
one."
I know that one. Yeah. That guy. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Gary also loving the mandolin. So yeah, there's a lot of great instruments on this. Connie and then Joni. Yeah, I agree. What a great song. And you know, when you co-wrote this song, did you? And I should ask maybe in your songs in general, do you usually have a sense of how it's going to be recorded, or is that something that when you're working with someone like Michael, the producer, you sort it out in the studio, or do you have kind of a vision for the
I have
song?
an idea, but I've learned to not to you know there's the old Buddhist saying to love with an open hand, not a closed fist. You know, that's the studio 100%. Like I kind of have an idea, but like they have their own lives, and you just take this input that you can with these wonderful, talented musicians around you. And I mean, I'm not that much of a dictator, or
Hmm.
I like to let them have their own lives, and I'm usually always surprised. I would rather throw a bunch of stuff at something and then cut things out than to not have.
Try it.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense? You know, try
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, I
this one
mean,
was a little different. We had kind of a sense of arrangements as far as like where solos are going and where bridges are going and stuff like that, because we did record this most of this live.
yeah, you mentioned that
So
earlier. And I know since Tony's out there listening, I have to ask the question he always asks because he's
mhm.
a big studio nerd. Is when you recorded it live, were you isolated or were you literally all in the same room playing
So
together?
the drums are in a room,
Hmm.
right? And then like the bass player, guitar and bass player and guitar player in the same room with headphones, but there's the guitar amp is isolated way in a
Hmm.
crazy room with mics on it, and it's turned to like 11, and um Drew is in there, so all the amps are kind of isolated, but everybody can hear with the headphones.
Hmm.
um and I was playing guitar. I think I probably went back and we just used that vocal like as a scratch,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
and I was in a different room, but I could see everybody through a huge window, so it wasn't like,
Nice.
yeah.
So you had the
So it's not
connection.
like a really cool YouTube video where they're all in a warehouse and they're all,
Right.
it wasn't that great, but
But yeah, no, but it does have that sort of electric energy, even when it's acoustic instruments.
you can't
That
fake it.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't fake it.
Um,
What you have to do is be conscious of. In fact, the one thing I'm thinking of while I'm listening to these songs is how much faster I probably play them live.
mm.
Just everything's up a little click, or how I play them now versus 12 years ago.
Yeah, is
The
that is
little
that
things have
just a
changed.
nature of
So
of how the songs have changed, or is that also a nature of it being live?
I think both.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
like it's funny. We just did that gig at this big music festival, and my drummer was gone, so I was really lucky. And Donnie Brown, who was the original drummer from the Verve Pipe, sat in, and we didn't have a rehearsal. We didn't have, but he's just such an amazing drummer and such a student. And I was talking to him on the phone the day before. We had sent him some live kind of recordings of some songs that haven't been recorded yet, so we could hear them. And he goes, and he's so diplomatic. He goes, I noticed by listening to these live things that sometimes your drummer will come in and kind of just pull you back a little bit. And I go, yeah, because I start everything off crazy
Too
fast
fast.
because that's how I am. And he laughed. He goes, would you mind? I'm like, not at all. I mean, he's so diplomatic, like
Yeah.
he didn't want to come out and say, dude, your timing isn't great.
No, and that is something that's in.
But the minute I fall right back into the right pocket. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's what a good band will do is not just elevate the song, but keep the lead musician on track, especially again with that live energy. It is easy to play everything fast, I
yeah,
find.
yeah.
Um, so well, again, the grooves on this album just sound great, and I this is a great time to remind folks that if they like what they hear, this album is available on all the digital places, so you can stream it and download it at all those places. And then it's also available as well through Compass Records. Red House Records, the label that originally put out this record, was acquired by another great indie label, Compass Records. And we've had a bunch of Compass artists on the show as well. And so I've put the link in the comments too, so you can just click on it there if you want to buy a copy of the record. It's also available in other places, Amazon and other places. So if you want a physical copy of the record, I own it, and I have to say, listening to these tracks in their full audio glory is something special that you won't get. Certainly, when you hear it through YouTube, it gets, once it's gone through the tubes, it's
Right,
not
right,
as
right,
good. But
right.
hearing the original high res audio files is worth it. So I hope you all will check it out. And also throw something in Drew's tip jar as well, because he's starting to make music again. Obviously, he's recovering from this motorcycle accident, but we want to fuel up his tank so that he can play more places, and including here in Minnesota, selfishly. But I know you're going to be coming to Sheboygan soon for a couple of shows.
Sheboygan, Michigan.
Oh, Sheboygan, Michigan.
Sheboygan,
Sorry.
Michigan. I wish I was going to Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. Yeah. There
And
was a minute I actually thought about raising my son as a Packers fan, because as a lifelong Lions fan, I feel like I don't want him to know that misery his entire life. And they're happy over there. They got cheese on their head. It's a crazy thing.
Well, I'm going to put the info about these couple shows. If anyone lives or is around Michigan or has friends there that they want to send to the shows, we want to make sure to get people there. So I just put that right there.
A wonderful little theater called the Lark Theater, and we'll be doing 2 shows that night, one at 6 and one at 7:30.
Excellent. And oh, by the way, Jeff is echoing about the high res files. Sounds like a great performance, not a recording. I would agree with that. And but I would say if I ever had a live performance that sounded half as good as this album, then I'd be pretty stoked. And then Joni had a question. Do you enjoy performing certain covers or just things you've written after prolific work writing? Um,
Oh, I like a good song. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I think But I always do weird covers. I don't do the normal like I do stuff that people don't expect me to do, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, because time is getting short, sadly. I don't know where
oh
this hour has gone, but I want to make sure we at least get one more song here from
yeah,
Tilt-A-Whirl.
yeah, yeah.
And the last one we have is 5th of September. Is
Hmm.
there anything you want to say about this before we take a listen to it?
Yeah, I had this. I always wanted to write a song that was a letter, and so this is my letter, the letter song. So, and then I'm also I've always been really interested in the Civil War. So this is a Civil War song, and I wrote it. There's a couple references in there. When he says, "Use the cloth that you gave me to tie prayers in the trees." There's that lyric. I had visited the Clutie Well in the Highlands of Scotland. For about 3 miles every side of this ancient Celtic wishing well, people had tied all these rags up in the trees and prayers and wishes and hopes, and reminded me a lot of the tobacco ties that my native friends tie and hang in the trees, their prayers. And then it was, oddly enough, it was written at the dining room table in Perth, Scotland, at Jim Malcolm's dining room table. So he was the lead singer of the Old Blind Dogs at the time,
Yeah.
which was funny. Yeah. So
Excellent.
and
Well,
there's
this
a funny
is
story. So Jim took me. I'm a big fly fisherman, and Jim took me fishing for grayling, and I was having a hard time for some reason hooking one up, and he said to me, "When the fish takes the fly," in this wonderful Scottish accent, "I want you to either say to yourself, 'God save the Queen,' or 'a free and independent Scotland,' depending on your disposition, and then set the hook."
I love that. And I love that he was open-minded as a
Yeah,
Scot to say,
yeah.
it could
I
be
don't
either
know where
way.
you stand. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that feels especially timely given now the passing of the baton to King Charles. So
Right,
whether it's God Save the King in this case,
right.
or
A
Long
free
Live
and
Scot
independent
Free
Scotland.
and Independent Scotland, we'll have this is 5th of September from Drew
Oh, and
Nelson's
listen to this
album Tilt-A-Whirl.
tremolo, because that's that
Ooh,
Ampeg amp that we were talking about.
okay. Listen up, kids.
Down by the water, the old muddy trail, under the cedar, would you wait for me there? Would you wait for me there? On the 5th of September, that's where I'll be, hoping to find you waiting for me, waiting for me. There are some things that I'd like you to know, but this letter's no place for those seeds to grow. There are some things that I keep close to me. Use cloth that you gave me to tie prayers in the tree. North Carolina left my heart on the ground. I'm up and I'm down, like the sparrow we found. The sparrow we found. You know they're just boys who fight in these things. You should hear them at night, the songs that they sing, the songs that they sing. There are some things that I'd like you to know, but this letter's no place for those seeds to grow. There are some things that I keep close to me. Use the cloth that you gave me to tie prayers in the tree. Sometimes at night I dream a great dream. I'm dancing with you, with our feet in the stream, with our feet in the stream. The music stops playing and you say one more, and I wake up shaking to the cannon's great roar. Oh, the gun's bloody roar. There are some things that I keep close to me. Use the cloth that you gave me to tie prayers in the trees, and the thought of you there, just waiting for me.
Letting that amp ring out. Man, you weren't kidding. That low
Yeah.
rumble that you just would hear, and then the like, so warm and
Yeah, that
so
big
beautiful.
baritone guitar through that. Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. And looks like Jeff said, love the cannon roar in the low end of that lyric. Yeah.
And Christopher was asking if there's any
y-
vinyl available.
yes.
And there's not, because, and this is why, Christopher, because in 12 years, you are the only person that's ever asked that question.
Oh, well,
That's why we never printed any.
yeah, and it's really expensive to make vinyl. And I will say, if folks are really, if Chris isn't the only one out there, folks should just make a nice big tip with a note in PayPal saying vinyl, and we can start a little vinyl fund
Right, yeah.
for Drew Nelson to press some on vinyl, because that would, man, this would sound great on vinyl. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Back Catalog Listening Party, revisiting Drew Nelson's 2012 release Tilt-A-Whirl here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Drew, again, it's been so long since I've even just seen your
So
face or
nice to
talked to
see
you.
you.
I
I know it.
know. One of these days I'll see you like at a show and we
A
can
show,
actually
yep.
play music or something together, because that would be really fun
That would be great.
to see you again. But for now, this is good, and we're happy to see that you're healing up from your accident and playing music again. And folks can follow Drew on Facebook. And I put a link in the comments so you can follow him there and get updates on where he's playing and around Michigan coming up. And I also want to thank all of you for joining us today, because this is what makes it great. Thanks,
thank you.
Gary and Connie, and all of you who are out there. And if you like it on YouTube, give it the thumbs up and direct more bots to Drew Nelson, so you'll get more Drew Nelson content. And also, this is a great opportunity to share this with other people. So share the record. This YouTube link will be available. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't before. And Jeff asks, when do we have a Beulah Land listed? That was the
Ooh,
album
that would
before
be really
this.
fun, wouldn't it?
It would
Yeah.
be fun. So, when we get Drew back for another back catalog, we can revisit that record. And if you want updates on who is coming up, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do this every week at 4 p.m. Central on YouTube. Not always with Drew Nelson, sadly, but I'm sure we'll have Drew back one of these days. But you can find out who is next. And yeah, I can't remember who is next week, but again, you'll have to subscribe to the YouTube channel. The folks who always know who's coming up on the back catalog listening party are our Patreon supporters. These are the folks that keep the show going, have been keeping it going for 127 episodes since March of
Wow.
2020. These folks have been ponying up and supporting the show. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Craig, Jake, Mary, Many Tracks, and Nikki, and maybe you, if you would like to
Wow.
become a part of the back catalog listening party Patreon community. You'll get first notice of who we have booked on the show. We do special listening parties and other cool stuff for our patrons. But mainly, it's just a wonderful community of people who love music, which you are all a part of because you have joined the show today. So thank you for being a part of it. And Chris says, thank you. Great time. And Jeff, also great show. And then Joni, I couldn't agree more. This is the best part of my week every week. No matter how many other wonderful things happen, this hour is really one of my favorites. And Alan said just what I needed. And I agree.
Can I give a little tiny shout out?
Yes, please do.
My little girl, Hattie B. Nelson, is 4 years old today. The big
Oh, happy birthday.
4, the big 04, almost.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, no.
so
Oh,
headed
well,
right over
happy
there.
birthday.
And
Happy
I found
birthday.
this most amazing thing that, so I'm not going to say what it is, but I'll tell you later. But because if
Awesome.
she's listening, I don't want to blow it. So
That's right. Well, we'll let you go and celebrate her fourth birthday. Happy birthday. And Drew, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today here on the
thank
Back
you
Catalog
very
Listening
much.
Party. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Cheers. Have a great
Cheers.
weekend.